Welcome to the Fear and Greed Afternoon Report for Wednesday, the 15th of February, 2023. I'm Sean Aylmer. Every afternoon, we've got the 5 stories that happened today that you need to know about. Mind you, on a day like today, it could have been 10. So much going on. Story number 1, it wasn't a great day for the market, especially the banks, with the S&P ASX 200 ending the day down more than 1% to 7,352 points. Commonwealth Bank's earnings announcement disappointed, and it was sold off sharply. More of that shortly. The other major banks followed suit, with Westpac off 4.4%, National Australia Bank finishing more than 4% lower, and ANZ down 3.5%. The energy companies were lower, with Woodside off 2.4%, while the iron ore miners generally outperformed, with Rio Tinto up 1.5%. The Star Entertainment Group had been hammered this week. Not today. It was the best performer, up nearly 14%. Worst was Brain Chip Holdings, which fell 13.6%. Story number 2. I mentioned it a moment ago. The Commonwealth Bank today posted a record half-year profit of $5.2 billion, upped its dividend, and made gains in the important business lending market. Yet, its share price tumbled, at one point being down 6% before closing at $102.99. That was down 5.7% for the day. That was thanks to forecasts that profit margins will be squeezed. The Commonwealth Bank was just one of many large companies to report today. Wesfarmers reported a record half-year profit of $1.4 billion, but warned that households are starting to feel the pinch. Cochlear's share price jumped 8% after its result, and Seven Group surprised investors by beating profit forecasts. Seems to be unusual this earnings season. That was thanks to its heavy equipment business. And finally, Fortescue today announced a 15% fall in half-year profit to about $3.4 billion. Story number 3, the 2 most important economic bureaucrats in the country, Governor of the Reserve Bank Phil Lowe and Head of Treasury Stephen Kennedy, were in front of estimates today in Canberra. Both had plenty to say. Lowe said interest rates are going higher. He agreed many households are hurting, but not capping inflation will trigger a much worse outcome. Head of Treasury Kennedy pretty much concurred with the governor. He isn't worried about a wage price spiral. Kennedy said the interest on government debt and the cost of the National Disability Insurance Scheme are the 2 fastest growing line items in the budget. He also said federal legislation around coal and gas price caps, including the Mandatory Code of Conduct, had helped ease price pressures. Story number 4, the corporate regulator this year says it's targeting predatory lending, bad insurance practices, and companies lying about their green credentials. Investors being heard in the cryptocurrency space, financial scams, cybersecurity and operation resilience, disclosure of climate risks and sustainable financing practices will also be priorities for the Australian Securities and Investments Commission in 2023. ASIC Deputy Chair Sarah Court said the regulator is likely to take legal action against greenwashing. That's where companies aren't really honest about their environmental credentials. Also against predatory lending and insurance companies failing to deliver promised discounts, particularly when customers are renewing policies. According to the Financial Review, the watchdog is sharply focused on predatory lending, particularly in changing economic environments, such as we have now, and when cost of living pressures on consumers are rising. And story number 5, US inflation numbers for January were released overnight. And really was a bit of a damp squid because the information came in pretty much on expectations. Headline CPI for the year to the end of January was 6.4% and 0.5% for the month. Core inflation was 5.6% over the year and 0.4% for the month. It tells us that inflation is high, very high, but moderating. Rates are still likely to rise in the US, with the market pricing in another 50 basis points. Markets reacted to the news, but then pretty much just went back to their business. By the end of the trading day, the S&P 500 hadn't changed much. Bond yields were a bit higher. Not much had happened to the US dollar. That's it for the afternoon report for Wednesday, the 15th of February, 2023. Michael Thompson and I will be back tomorrow morning with the Thursday edition of Fear and Greed. I'm Sean Aylmer. Enjoy your evening.